What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new video. I know I've been gone for a little while. I'm back now. I just took a little break after everything with the New Year's, and I just took some time off of YouTube. Didn't really feel like posting. Not a lot going on, really. It's the early parts of the year. There's never usually too much craziness going on this early into the year, but we're starting to dig into the year a little bit. Now being midway through February, and of course, everybody, or at least in terms of what I'm interested in, what everybody's talking about right now, is Scream 7. Scream 7 is on the horizon. We've been getting trailers, marketing, the whole bit. And as I typically do when a new movie or show or anything that I'm interested in is coming out, I usually spend most of my time talking about it. And that's what this video will be. It is going to be a Scream ranking. I have done this video in the past, years and years ago. It was probably 2 years ago. I did a Scream ranking, and I did one sort of semi-recently. I think I did it in October. I did one as a short, but I actually want to do a full-on video, going in depth, talking about it, and, having a full-on discussion. And so, again, like I said, this is what this video will be. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get right into the video. Coming in last place, always and forever, will be Scream 4. This movie is an absolute gigantic piece of dog shit. On my Letterboxd, I have this movie at a 2-star rating. Simply, my main problem with this movie is that it absolutely tries nothing new. It's sort of a, it's almost like a requel before requel's really a thing. It feels like a reboot in some ways, but it also feels like a sequel. And again, in that sense, it just tries nothing new. It's bringing it back to Woodsboro again. It tries to do that whole thing of, bringing it back to basics, bringing it back to where the franchise started type of thing. And it seems like that's what they do with every fucking Scream movie nowadays. But it really started with this one. I can go on and on why this movie's bad. The characters it's just insufferable. The only new good character in this, the cast here, is Kirby. Jill is insufferable. Charlie just has nothing to offer. Charlie's gay friend, and I don't even know his name. None of us know his name because he's just such a forgettable character, aside from the fact that he's gay and he walks around with a little head cam thingy. He's corny. He's just cringe. Terrible character. You have Jill's boyfriend. I think his name is Trevor. Again, offers absolutely nothing. And the worst part of it is that the three main characters, Sidney, Gale, and Dewey, have absolutely nothing to do in this movie. They just kind of are there, because you get the sense that they're trying to pass the torch on a little bit to these newer cast of kids, but also not at the same time, because those newer cast of kids end up becoming the killers, you know what I'm saying? Like Jill and Charlie. It really felt like they were trying to pass it down to them. And again, it turns out that they're the fucking killers. So and terrible killers too, man. They sucked. Again, Charlie's got no personality. His motive's boring, bland, is not interesting. With Jill, her motive is definitely a bit more interesting, and Emma Roberts, I think, does a decent job at, portraying that bitch. She's just very bitchy, but because she's so bitchy, that also works to her downfall, because, again, she's a very insufferable character. And she's just not intimidating as a villain, Again, she's just bitchy. I feel like a killer's better when he feels more psychotic. The more psychotic the killer feels, I think the more fun it is. Kind of like with Stu and Billy and Mickey and Mrs. Loomis. It's more fun that way, right? Because you get the sense that they're just not a normal person. The ugly ass cinematography in this movie, the camera, it looks like it was fucking smeared with Vaseline. The movie has this ugly ass yellow tinge to it. Very ugly. The pluses I will give this movie, it is pretty gruesome. The kills are pretty grisly, which I can appreciate. You guys know I love Carnage Candy. I'm a big horror hound. I love gore in my horror movies. I think it makes it more fun. It's part of the thing of a slasher. Another terrible thing about this movie. I know we were getting into the good stuff, but the opening is just atrocious. It's so. I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to create this new idea. It just didn't work. It just came off as kind of how there was kind of the movie within the movie within the movie. I didn't like it. The CGI knife in this movie too is hideous with the CGI blood, and that was awful. But yeah, to be honest, really the only good thing I can say about this movie are some of the kills. That's about it. Aside from that, this movie sucks. Coming in at number 5, we have Scream 5. Unfortunately, this movie isn't very good either. I think I have it at a 2.5 on Letterboxd. I think that this, again, sort of like with Scream 4, it just tries nothing new. You know, it goes back to what it knows, bringing it back to Woodsboro again for the upteenth time, as if that wasn't already done with Scream 4. Like, they did it in Scream 5 as if it was a novel idea, you know? And it very much so was not a novel idea. You know, I can appreciate that they finally actually made the commitment to pass down the torch, but the problem here is that they passed the torch down to cringy characters. I'm sorry, I know people are a big fan of Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega. I do not like them. In Scream 5. I hate them in Scream 5. They're not good characters at all, in my opinion. Their dialogue is really bad. There's some really bad lines in this movie, man. Like, never fuck with the daughter of a serial killer. That's a really bad one. That's usually the one 9 times out of 10 when I'm talking about the dialogue in this movie. That's the one that I think of. It's just really, really bad. So yeah, their dialogue is just atrocious. They just don't feel natural. They don't feel like real characters. Or real people per se. You can tell they're acting. I don't appreciate the changes they did try to take with this. You know, they had it so that, you know, the girl in the beginning doesn't actually die this time. She actually survives it, which was the first time thing. It's like, okay, cool, I suppose. It just was a change that didn't do anything for me, personally. So I really didn't appreciate that. I do like the fact that they killed off Dewey. I think it was about time they started killing off some of these main characters. And I have a gut feeling they're probably going to kill Gale off in Scream 7. But, you know, there's nothing that pisses me off more than when you have these characters who are in constant danger, but they never have to face the consequence of death, which is what pissed me off about Stranger Things' ending. And that's completely unrelated, but that's just an example. So I do appreciate that they actually had the gall to kill off a big character in this movie. None of the kills were anything really special, in my opinion. They definitely upped the ante in terms of the brutality of it, but none of the kills were anything like, oh, that's creative, oh, that's cool. They were just basic knife stabs most of the time. The hospital sequence was pretty cool. I really did like the hospital sequence. You know, I think the soundtrack's actually pretty good. There's a few songs in here that I actually really do like. The end credit song I thought was pretty good. The DJ Khaled song in the beginning I thought was nice. He's bringing back some of the returning characters. I mean, you had Judy from Scream 4, who I thought, to be honest, kind of sucked in this movie. I don't even really know why she was in it. She just was there just to die. Just completely kind of wasted her. Some of the new characters I actually do like, but they weren't used very well, in my opinion. I think the only one who was used really well in Scream 5 that they introduced in said movie was Wes. I really like what they did with Wes. Obviously, his name was inspired by Wes Craven, who didn't direct this movie because he was dead. He was kind of there to commemorate Wes, and I kind of appreciated that. You know, he was a cool character. I wish he wouldn't have died in that movie. I feel like he would have been a cool character to go on to the sequel. But they just completely... Then you have, obviously, Mindy and Chad, who suck in Scream 5, in my opinion. Again, they just have nothing to offer, really. The only thing Mindy has to offer is that cringe-inducing scene in the house, in Randy's house, where they're talking about their uncle. And it's like, dude, there's no fucking way these kids are his nephews. Like, the only similarity between them is that she likes horror movies. And then they have... I'm so over just the meta shit in this movie, in these Scream movies. It's just like, and then that conversation's kind of relevant right now because I'm pretty sure Kevin Williamson just said he's kind of moving away from the meta-ness, and I saw people were pissed off about that, and I don't know why. The meta thing isn't cool anymore. It was cool in the 90s and the early 2000s when you were doing it, but since like Scream 4, man, it has not been cool. It isn't cool anymore. It's not fun. It just leads to these cringe-inducing sequences and scenes. Again, the house scene is so cringe to me. I cringe every time I watch it. It's just like she's sitting there, and she's like, "Oh my god, he's making a requel." I'm like, "Oh, you're so cringe. Please stop." It's just not cool anymore to me. You know, it's just like they're overdoing it. It's overboard. It's not cool anymore. Again, it was cool in the 90s. I'll give you that, but it isn't cool anymore. Again, it's just the dialogue's horrendous. That is my biggest issue with this movie. The dialogue's really bad. And how I feel about the killers, Jack Quaid, I like Jack Quaid. He's a good actor, but he sucked in this movie. And Mikey Madison, though, she was really good. I actually really appreciated her. Her performance was actually pretty good. She was by far the better of the two killers, and I actually liked her. She's one of my favorite killers. I think she did a pretty good job. But yeah, man, this is another one of those Scream movies. It just wasn't too good for me, unfortunately. At number 4, we have Scream 3, everybody's most hated Scream movie. This is the black sheep of the franchise always. It isn't for me, though. I actually like Scream 3. I have a lot of fun with this movie, you know? I really like Roman Bridger, even though he's barely in the fucking movie. I wish he was in it a lot more. But I like him as a killer, you know? He's an interesting killer to me because out of all the killers, he feels the least psychotic. He feels the most sane, which in a way actually kind of makes him scarier because it's you know, that's usually the downfall of these killers, is that they're so fucking psychotic and crazy that they usually fuck up. He covers his bases. He covers his shit. He is a scary fucking killer, and he was definitely the most dangerous. He's one of my favorite Ghostface killers. So Roman Bridger, again, even though he was barely in the fucking movie, I pray we get like a flashback or something with him in Scream 7. I know Scott Foley's returning. I hope we get to actually see him and it's not just his fucking voice. He's one of my favorite killers. I really, really, really liked him. You know, I know everybody hates the voice changer box where you can mimic people's voices because obviously this franchise is based in reality, but it's like, dude, if you are able to suspend your belief or your disbelief, whatever you want to call it, enough to watch a grown man get stabbed 20 times in the chest and abdomen, then I think you can suspend your belief about this voice changer that can mimic anybody's voice at any time it wants to. You know, it's one of those things, you know what I'm saying? But that was like a big deal with this movie. People hated it because of that voice changer, and I thought it was fun. You know, I thought it was kind of cool, as unrealistic as it was. You know, I actually liked that Gale was kind of the front runner. Gale and Dewey were kind of the front runners in this movie, and Sidney kind of took the back seat a little bit because I think they're inherently more, I don't want to say more interesting characters, but they're more entertaining characters. And it was nice to have them in the forefront, you know, have their bond and relationship. Putting it in Hollywood, I think that was a good idea. Having, you know, Roman kill the people in order that they die in the script and everything, but you don't know what script he's choosing. I thought that was pretty cool. I did not like the house sequence where they're running in and out of the house and then the house explodes when he lights the lighter. That was stupid. And, you know, the whole thing where you can really blatantly tell that there were supposed to be two killers and then there ended up being one, that was pretty messy. It was just kind of obvious. I hated the whole thing with Sidney's ghost mom. That was really stupid. You know, a lot of early 2000s corny dialogue in there. You know, I do like some of the comedic scenes, like having Patrick Warburton in there, I thought was pretty funny. But aside from that, like, again, they just had some of those early 2000s cringe-inducing moments. I think I have this movie at like a 2.5 or a 3 on Letterboxd. It's not too high particularly, but by no means is it a bad. I wouldn't say it's a bad movie, but it's definitely not a very good movie either. It's kind of just falls in the middle for me. But coming in at number 3, we have Scream 2. Now, before on my other list, it used to be at number 2. Now it's at number 3. Simply because you know, it's still a really enjoyable movie, but I feel it's a little derivative of Scream 1 in some ways. You know, it kind of repeats the exact same formula. The only thing that really changes about it are obviously the killers, but the location. I like that this movie wasn't afraid to take risks by killing off Randy, even though I think they should have killed off Dewey instead and kept Randy alive. But I do appreciate that they took the risk to actually kill Randy. I thought that was nice, you know. Every returning character that came back from the first movie, they're just as good as they were in the first movie. We have some great new characters, like Sidney's new boyfriend. We also have Sidney's best friend, Mickey Altieri. So some actually really good new supporting characters. And I love the killers in this movie. Mickey Altieri and Mrs. Loomis are fantastic killers, in my opinion, especially Mickey. He may actually be the best Ghostface. He's just so insane, and he's so cooked out, and his line deliveries are hilarious. He's a hysterical killer. He's not in enough of the movie. That's another problem I have with Scream 2 is like he's kind of absent for like 40 minutes until he shows up again at the end to reveal himself as the killer. That kind of pissed me off. But aside from that, man, this is a really fun, enjoyable movie. The kills are up, like they up the ante with the kills. The gore is more violent, you know. I think it kind of becomes harder to figure out who the killer is, which was appreciated because as much as I love Scream One, upon rewatch, it's so obvious as to who the killer is going to be. Like, obviously, it's obvious because you already know. But even if you take that out of it, it's still at times pretty obvious that it's Billy and Stu. Like the whole thing inside of the movie store where they grab Randy by the back of the head and put him in the headlock or whatever. At points it was obvious. You could have never saw Scream 2's killers coming. Seriously, you could have never saw them coming, especially with Mrs. Loomis. So I really appreciated that. And yeah, Scream 2 is just fun, man. There's some great sequences in this movie too. The whole sequence where Ghostface is chasing Gale through the studio. And she kills Dewey up against the glass, and Gale has to watch. That's a great sequence right there. And yeah, it's a very enjoyable movie. The beginning sequence obviously is great in the movie theater. Again, I think it upped the ante from the first movie. Not as good as the first movies, of course, but it was still decent. But again, I think it's a decent sequel, and it's kind of what you would expect for a sequel, if that makes sense. So I'm putting it at number 3. Coming in at number 2, we have Scream 6. Now, this movie kind of holds a special place in my heart. This is the only Scream movie I've ever seen in theaters. And I don't know if that's why it holds kind of a special place in my heart, but I think the reason I love this movie so much is the atmosphere. I really love the New York vibe and atmosphere of this movie. I just love the big city, the bright lights, the colors. But it also has this darker tone to it, And I think it feels like a breath of fresh air for the franchise. I think they do something new and creative with the opening where, it's not our killers for the movie, but they are still Ghostface killers, and it reveals who they are right away. I think that's smart. I think that was a really unique change that kind of made us go, what's going on, Putting it in New York, I think, was a great setting, and I think they used the setting really, really good. I definitely think it was used, again, to the best effect that it could have been. The characters that we were introduced to in Scream 5 are so much better in this. They're so much more relatable, and they have so much more personality to them, like Chad and Mindy. Sam and Tara also just feel more relatable in this movie. They're both dealing with their trauma. Tara is, going to these parties all the time and constantly drinking, where Sam is very strict with her lifestyle and going to therapy, and it felt more real and organic than they did in the previous film. And obviously this is the first movie without Sidney, and it wasn't the type of thing where it was like, oh my God, I really miss Sidney. I really wish he was here. It worked. You didn't feel like you needed Sidney anymore. And I know people are upset that they fired Jenna Ortega fired Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega quit, and now we got Sidney coming back. I'm all for that. But that is not to take away from anything that Sam and Tara were in 6. I really liked them in 6. I like the whole thing with the cracked ghost face mask and how they were leaving a mask at every location. I wish the killers would have been better. I think Scream 6 would have been the movie to have it be an older killers, or at least do the whole mask thing where he's leaving old masks from old crime scenes. Do that in Scream 7, it didn't make sense for the Kirsch family to be doing that. It just kind of didn't make sense. But I still think it was a cool concept. Obviously, some great sequences. The apartment sequence is fantastic, where they have to climb across the ladder. The bodega sequence, the subway sequence, the ending sequence. There's so many great sequences. The Gale's apartment sequence. This movie is all about sequences. It has definitely probably the best sequences in the franchise. Some great kills in there. Obviously, the shotgun kill. Again, the ladder kill. Fantastic kills. You did not see the killers coming, but from any point you did not see these killer reveals coming. From a million miles away, you couldn't have seen it. You never could have seen it coming. I think the movie was smart with it. Some bits of bad dialogue here and there, and then they definitely cut some corners, and there's some things that didn't make sense. How Wayne Bailey was able to switch his daughter's body with a fake one, or with a fresh dead body. That didn't make any sense. There's no way he could have done that. It doesn't really make sense how he used to be a completely different person, but then changed his whole identity and became a cop. That just didn't make any sense either. So they definitely had to cut some corners to make things work. But all things considered, man, this was a really good movie. I gave it at a 3.5 on Letterboxd. I really enjoy this one. This is a fun movie for sure. But of course, coming in at number one, we have the original Scream. You're never going to get better than this movie when it comes to the Scream franchise. You're just never going to get better. You know, the killers are just fucking by far the best. You know, Billy and Stu are incredible in this movie. You know, there's some great kills to start off the franchise. The iconic Ghostface mask, the whole meta concept back then was awesome. You know, this is where it all started with. If it wasn't for this movie, you would not have the rest of the franchise, right? And it was so fresh, it was so new, and it really sparked this new life into you know, horror movies, and especially with slashers and everything. This movie just, it had everything, you know, and it's great. It's one of the greatest movies of all time, in my opinion. I genuinely wholeheartedly believe that it's one of the greatest movies of all time. And you know, Halloween will always be my love for the horror franchise, but this, man, Scream is like right there with it, man. You know, like Halloween's right here, Scream's like right here. They're like so close. I love Scream to death, and then, again, this movie is just fantastic. The cast is incredible. You know, there's just so much to love about this. Again, how smart it is. Again, it's such a unique concept for the time, and the way they executed it just worked. You know, this whole thing of mixing slashers with a murder mystery, that's so smart, and that's just such a good idea, you know, and it worked to every extent, you know, and it's a masterpiece of a movie. So number one will always be the original Scream. Scream 7 is not going to change that. Where do I think I'm going to put Scream 7 though after this? I genuinely believe it's going to be number 2. I really do think so. Just by looking at all the trailers, it seems like it's going to be really story heavy and character heavy, and I'm just hoping they'll be able to balance it. I'm hoping that this movie is good. You know, I really am. But yeah, that is my Scream ranking in the year 2026. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Make sure to drop a like, rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.